We anticipate in the next 10 to 12 years, approximately 8 to 6 million Hispanics coming into the United States and 41 million Asians. You have been the majority minority for 400 years in this country. You have been the number 2 population for 400 years. You're going to get kicked out of being number 2. You're going to go down and become number 4. Now, common sense, even a third grade education would tell you, if you didn't get anything when you were number 2, you always jumped ahead of me, but anyway, you can guess what you're going to get when you become number 4.
President Biden, do you support reparations?
Well, I mean, since I haven't spoken on this, got a chance. Number one, the reason we're the country we are is because of innovation. We've been able to cherry pick the best from every single country. The people who come here have determination, resilience. They are ready to stand up and work like the devil. We have 24 out of 100 children in our school today is Hispanic. The idea that we are going to walk away and not provide every opportunity for them is not only stupid and immoral, but it's bad for America. They are the future of America. Systemic racism that has plagued our nation for far, far too long. I said that over the course of the past year that the blinders have been taken off the nation, the American people. But what many Americans didn't see or had simply refused to see couldn't be ignored any longer. Those 8 minutes and 46 seconds that took George Floyd's life opened the eyes of millions of Americans and millions of people around all over the world. It was the knee on the neck of justice, and it wouldn't be forgotten. And it's not white Americans' fault, but just a fact.
The very same time that America refused to give the Negro any land, through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white presence from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, they built land-grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. Not only that, they provided county agents to further their expertise in farming. Not only that, they provided low interest rates in order that they could mechanize their farm. Not only that, today, many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And this is what we are faced with. And this is the reality. Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
We are owed $104 trillion on the very low end, plus $735 billion recurring. This number does not include the cost of about 50 Black Wall Streets that were decimated, nor compound interest from 2017 when Sean D. Rochester's book, The Black Tax, was published, nor the cost of Black life, nor the cost of living increases, nor the war on drugs, nor the current day pandemic. The number I'm working with is for slavery, Jim Crow, and accrued ongoing systemic racism, oppression, and disadvantage in the country our ancestors built with their lives.
Good evening on the West Coast. Good evening in the mountains. Good evening in the Central. Good evening on the East Coast. You know exactly who it is, family. Angela Nirvana, your hostess with the mostest on the reparationist perspective, bringing you those ADOTS hot topics and making the case for reparations, making the case for weaponizing our vote and socializing our suffering. And today, family, this is your 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time segment of the Ida B. Wells 2.0 series presents anti-Black racism. Since Biden wants to sit up here and weaponized George Floyd against ADOX to pivot and give Asians protections in AAPI 80.5 million racks. Okay? So over here at the Reparations Perspective, we are keeping the spotlight on all the puckery happening to ADOX in our 500 plus year Holocaust in the country our ancestors built with their lives. Oh, I'm not playing over here. I'm telling all about it. I'm telling the TR roof. I'm telling it like it TR is. I'm being shadow banned. I'm being disabled. But guess what I won't be? Guess what I won't be? I won't be silent. No. You don't get to execute my people with impunity and me not call you out about it. Me not shame you about it. You can whitewash the history all you want. I'm over here to bring that TR roof, that Angela Nirvana fire. I'm here to bring all of that smoke for all of the puckery. When you put your neck literally and figuratively on your foot on the neck of my people, oh, you gonna hear from me. You gonna hear from me, and that's it, and that's all. And I don't care how you feel about it. And hey, I've got to get this off my chest. What's up, Babe Rax? I see you, my love. Brian, AAPI puckery. I try my best not to curse because I do realize y'all like to share these stories with some of y'all's kids. And I look at Babe Rax. Look, he used the F. That's the one I feel like saying. I'm trying to keep it G over here. I'm trying to keep it at least PG. I do my best. Sometimes it slips out. But family, thank you so much for joining the live. For those of you who have chat where you're heralding bricks from, I thank you for being here. What's up, Trey X? I got some faithful brothers that just keep me lifted. Oh my God, I feel like going on when I see y'all names over here in the chat. Thank you so much. We're going to jump right into it because I really am doing my best to just do these shows in an hour or less. So y'all know I was born to talk. That's a real challenging, thing for me to do, is to try to get it all in 1 hour when I've got so much to say. Hey, there's so much puckery going on. That's why I've got so much to say. And it's atrocious what they're doing to ethnically cleanse us from the country that our ancestors built with their lives. Let's start with this story. Now, y'all know I'm gonna disappear, but I'm here, but I'm over here reading. So, and commenting up the wazoo. The DOJ considers charging the Glacier Donkey white inferior race soldier Derek Chauvin in 2017 incident where he, not allegedly, this ain't no alleged, he did this. I told y'all before that there were 8 other incidents of the 22 complaints in his 19 years where he was practicing the kill choke. Well, in 2017, he beat this black 14-year-old young man and knelt on him for 17 minutes. Now, this is dated April 24, 2021. Let's get right into it because you know I got things to say. The hits just don't stop coming for ex-Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin, whose attorney is trying to declare a mistrial because one of the brothers who sat on the jury said that he had never attended a George Floyd march, and he hasn't. He didn't lie. He was over at the march for the commemoration of Martin Luther King, okay, in his march with Al Sharpton. So now they're trying, I tell you, they blame it on the rain. They blame it on Pookie and Ray Ray. They blame it on the bystanders. They blame it on Mr. Floyd's underlying health conditions, his drug addictions or whatever they have. They blame it on the paramedics. They blame it on the kids. They should have left. I mean, oh my God. Oh, child, the ghetto. Anyway, now that he's been convicted of murdering George Floyd, the Department of Justice is considering the possibility of charging him in connection to a 2017 incident where the man who knelt on Mr. Floyd's neck for more than 9 minutes also, I'm not going to say allegedly, he did it, knelt on a black teenager for a whopping 17 minutes. And this young brother lived to tell it. I told y'all. And why didn't Cahill allow this to come in as evidence? He didn't pick this one. Of the 8 that the prosecutor presented to the Mr. Cahill, not Mr. Judge Cahill, because they were trying to get these 8 kill choke attempts introduced into evidence to present to the jurors. And Judge Cahill would not allow that, but he allowed defense to weaponize what happened with Mr. George Floyd's arrest, I want to say in May of 2019 or March, one of them M's. He allowed defense to use that. Make it make sense. To me, that's where he was helping defense. Because for you to have a living white inferior glacier donkey race soldier, Chauvin, there to, alive and breathing and able to speak on his own defense, Mr. George Floyd didn't have that opportunity. So if if he was innocent of attempting to practice a kill choke on the 8 other complainants, then why not allow the prosecution to use the most heinous ones like this one? I mean, the jury did the right thing, but I mean, this could have really just sealed the deal. This could have just, they probably would have gone in there in 5 minutes and came back with a verdict had they known this, don't you think? But no, you want to sit up here and use an arrest against Mr. George Floyd, who's not living to testify against the BS, to allow the defense to present that to try to help Chauvin out. Ain't that about a blip? I told y'all the KKK is on the bench and in the government, not just on the police department, okay? Anywho, back to the text. ABC News reports that when prosecutors were preparing for the case that would bring Chauvin to justice, they received several videos of the incident with the black teen and said they were shocked by what they saw. Of course, this evidence was not allowed at trial because the defense successfully argued that jurors should be barred from hearing about Chauvin's history of neck and body restraints on suspects, which is wild, considering the fact that defense attorneys also argued that Floyd's past arrest should be admissible, and some of that evidence was allowed in. To my point, I said that before I even read it. From ABC, the videos from September 4, 2017 allegedly show Chauvin striking a black teenager in the head so hard that the boy needed stitches, then allegedly holding the boy down with his knee for nearly 17 minutes and allegedly ignoring complaints from the boy that he could not breathe. Ooh, the puckery, family, the puckery. Ooh, child, the ghetto, as the kids often exclaim. Those videos show a far more violent and forceful treatment of this child than Chauvin describes in his report of the incident, because they lie like a rug all the time. If we don't have the cameras rolling, they turn their body cams off. They do a myriad of things to hide the fact that their First Amendment rights to be domestic terrorists with a badge in our communities supersedes our Black Lives Mattering. They are hired to execute us with impunity, to gentrify us out of our own communities. Matthew Frank, one of the state prosecutors, wrote in a court filing at the time, okay? Chauvin was never charged for the incident. But earlier this year, federal prosecutors in Minneapolis brought witnesses before a federal grand jury to provide testimony regarding the altercation. The chickens are coming home to roost, as the late, great Malcolm X said. Oh, yes, and I'm here for it, hunties, okay? A source reportedly told ABC that the DOJ is still investigating what happened to the teen and is deciding whether or not to charges against Chauvin for that incident, as well as Floyd's death, are warranted. Of course they are. Of course they are. Bring them out, bring them out. The incident involving the black teen reportedly began when his mother called the police, accusing her son and daughter of attacking her. Chauvin and another officer arrived at the woman's home, and apparently all hell broke loose after the teen refused to follow their instructions. Here's what Frank said happened as reported by ABC. After officers entered the home and spoke to the woman, they ordered the son to lie on the ground, but he refused. Within seconds, Chauvin hit the teenager with his flashlight, grabbed the teenager's throat, hit him again with the flashlight, and then applied a neck restraint, causing the child to lose consciousness and go to the ground, according to Frank's account of the videos, detailed in a filing seeking permission to raise the incident during trial. It wasn't allowed by Judge Cahill. But Mr. Floyd, the defenseless deceased by way of execution by government sanction, was not there to defend the allegations of what went down when he was arrested. No justice, no peace, family. Anyway, Chauvin and the other officer placed the teenager in the prone position and handcuffed him behind his back while the teenager's mother pleaded with him not to kill her son and told her son to stop resisting. Frank wrote, noting that at one point, the teenager's ear began bleeding. About a minute after going to the ground, the child began repeatedly telling the officers that he could not breathe. And his mother told Chauvin to take his knee off her son. About 8 minutes in, Chauvin moved his knee to the teenager's upper back and left it there for 9 more minutes, according to Frank. Eventually, Chauvin told the teenager he was under arrest for domestic assault and obstruction with force. The two officers then helped the teenager to an ambulance, which took him to a hospital to receive stitches, Frank wrote. For Black people, calling the police for any reason often turns into a double-edged sword situation. On one hand, we need protection from crime just like anyone else does. On the other hand, we just have no way of knowing whether or not calling the police will make things worse. And far too often it does. Floyd would be alive today if legal officials saw to it that a cop who would beat on a 14-year-old within seconds of him refusing to lie on the ground and then kneeling on him for the better part of 20 minutes would no longer be policing the streets of Minneapolis. I had told you the MPD was complicit in saying his prior attempts to choke out 8 other citizens was reasonable. The complaints, 22 in total in 19 years, the MPD said it was reasonable for those that made it, to some type of investigation. They ruled all of this reasonable. Anyone who is still arguing that Chauvin doesn't belong in prison has basically decided that cops simply can't be criminals. And if the 2017 incident doesn't dispel that notion, nothing will. This is why we continue to fight. And this is why we've got the Reparationist Perspectives Anti-Black Racism segment. Because we cannot fix what we refuse to face. Ida B. Wells did the same thing when they were lynching us. It was more than 4,000. It was far more than 4,000. Now they get to do it with impunity with a badge, okay? So let's go to my next article. I want to finish up about my young Makia Bryant, Columbus mayor. I jumped from this article because I got so engrossed the last time with the social system, children's social services, and how neglectful and the atrocities on our children, their mental, their emotional, their spiritual, their physical. I got so caught up in that article. I read it from rooter to tutor and commented in between. I was just mortified. I had to read the whole thing. So I didn't get to finish this article So this is part of that, where the Columbus mayor requests federal investigation of police force after Ma'Khia Bryant shooting and other deaths. Attorney for Bryant's family also wants probe into handling of the 16-year-old's foster care placement. That's when I jumped to the article to talk about the dreadful foster mother. Back to the text. City leaders in Columbus, Ohio sent a letter to the U.S. Department of Justice Wednesday asking for an investigation into the city's police department following several police killings of Black people, including the fatal shooting of 16-year-old Ma'Khia Bryant last week. Ethnic cleansing. Let me remind you, for those of you who are new to the show, that Ma'Khia's foster mother had called her grown-ass ex-foster daughters to come over there and whip on Ma'Khia for not doing the dishes. Ma'Khia, or someone in that set, called the police for Ma'Khia's protections against these grown-ass women. And they shot a hole in her chest, 4 bullets. 16 years old. In a foster system where they had so many reports by the children of the abuses in that home. It's atrocious what was going on. And Ma'Khia managed to be a straight A student despite it all. I don't know, given what I know about this case, that I could have been a straight A student with the horrors, the trauma she was enduring in the care of all these different foster people. I just, listen, back to the text. While Ohio's capital city has made significant progress enacting changes to its police department, the city needs additional help because of fierce opposition to reform within the agency, said Mayor Andrew Ginther and City Attorney Zach Klein, both Democrats. Me speaking. The FBI, I'm going to continue to sound this alarm till times get better. In 2016, the FBI says since 2006, the KKK, neo-Nazis, and skinheads have infiltrated the police force all throughout the country. And the police departments feel compelled to hire them so they don't impede on their First Amendment rights to associate with hate groups. These are domestic terrorists, while the FBI labels people like me who fight for social and economic justice for ADOCs. Black identity extremists is what we're called. They don't get the domestic terrorist label. Why is that? Because there are judges, they're on the police department, and they're in the government. Back to the text. So all of this reform and all this nonsense, it's no wonder why there's fierce opposition. You literally are hiring domestic terrorists to come into our communities to execute us with impunity, while pretending to the public we don't know why. We don't know why when it comes to the Blacks. They lose all sense of their training, but when they take our mass murderers who are white, they take them alive. We don't understand how the training goes out the window. Oh, you overstand because you're hiring them intentionally to do this, to ethnically cleanse us right off the face of the earth. And their bullets know no pedigree. So don't be too smug. Ever. It's by the grace of God we're still alive. Those bullets know no pedigree. They know black. Period. End of story. Criticism has included not just fatal police shootings, but also the department's reaction to last summer's protests over racial injustice and police brutality following the death of George Floyd at the hands of former police officer Chauvin, who was charged with his murder. A report commissioned by City Council and released earlier this week criticized both the police department and city leaders, saying Columbus was unprepared for the size and energy of the protests. Oh, yes. I don't know why. This is not about one particular officer, policy, or incident. Rather, this is about reforming the entire institution of policing in Columbus and throughout the country, I would venture to say. Ginther and Klein said in Wednesday's letter, simply put, we need to change the culture of the Columbus Division of Police. The Justice Department recently announced that it's opening probes into policing in Minneapolis police following Floyd's death in May 2020 and in Louisville, Kentucky after the March 2020 death of Breonna Taylor during a police raid on her apartment. It's all in vain. Didn't the feds get involved when they executed Mike Brown and said there's nothing to see here? Bryant's family calls for justice. Ginther's letter came on the same day a lawyer representing the Bryant's family said that there should be a federal investigation into the teen's fatal shooting by a Columbus police officer, along with a probe into the handling of Bryant's foster care placement. They both deserve to be under the jail. Based on what I've learned about the case, Attorney Michelle Martin wouldn't discuss details of why Bryant was in foster care, besides the fact that at the time, the family needed help. But she did say that Bryant had been in the system for too long. What do you expect when you've been neutralized economically on the local, county, state, and federal levels? You can't afford to have kids. You can't afford to feed your kids. Like, why do people create the problem and then scratch their balls wondering how we got here? Black 16-year-old girl fatally shot by police in Ohio. Bryant was a 16-year-old vibrant, bubbly girl whose life was cut short by many of our failing systems, Martin told reporters Wednesday. We're going to investigate every agency that had the time and the opportunity to prevent Makia's death, and they should all be fired and be tried. It's bigger than the race soldier that shot her 4 bullets to the chest. It's bigger than him. It's a whole system of institutional systemic racism working against us to ethnically cleanse us from the country our ancestors built with their lives. In addition to a federal probe, Martin called for an investigation of Ohio's Health and Human Services Agency, which oversees the state's foster care system. Everybody needs to go to jail. Bryant's father, Myron Hammonds, and her paternal grandmother, Janine Hammonds, were present at the news conference and spoke about the pain of losing the teenager. To know Makia is to know life, said Myron Hammonds, who was on the scene the day his daughter was shot, the day his daughter was annihilated. She was with me for 16 years, and she was my peacemaker. Janine Hammonds called last Tuesday's events tragic and unimaginable. I want justice for my grandbaby, she said. Bryant's 2 younger sisters, Janiyah and Azariah Bryant, were also at the media conference. Janiyah Bryant was living with Makia at the foster home in the southeast Columbus neighborhood where the shooting took place. Janiyah was the one to tell the foster care system to remove her, or murder was going to be the case they were going to give her. She was ready to kill to get free. Let that sink in. Family members did not speak about the day of the shooting or what they saw, with Martin citing the family's independent investigation into what happened. Bryant shot on the day of Chauvin trial verdict. Bryant died on April 20, less than an hour before the guilty verdict was delivered in Chauvin's murder trial. Columbus police officer Nicholas Reardon fired 4 shots at Bryant as she swung a knife at a young woman. Critics of police use of force and witnesses to the shooting, including Bryant's father and grandmother, want to know why the officer didn't use other tactics to stop Bryant, such as deploying a stun gun. But many use of force experts and even some civil rights attorneys have said the officer followed his training and may have saved the girl Bryant was attacking. A grown-ass woman, that is. The National Fraternal Order of Police called the shooting an act of heroism, but one with tragic results. Ain't that about a blip? You can take white mass murderers alive, but this annihilation of a 16-year-old straight-A student who was being terrorized in her foster home is an act of heroism with tragic results? Ooh, fix it, Black Jesus, Lord. Events leading to the shooting began late in the afternoon after someone in Bryant's foster home called 911. It's still unclear who, and said someone was trying to stab people in the house. In self-defense, Reardon, who has been on the force since December 2019, was dispatched minutes later. Hey, what's going on? Reardon asked upon exiting his vehicle. In the next 11 seconds, Bryant was seen charging a 20-year-old Shay Antalana Craig Watkins with a kitchen knife, and then moving on to 22-year-old Tiana Bonner before Reardon yelled, "Get down," and fired 4 consecutive shots into Bryant's chest. Anger over other Columbus police shootings. Hours after Bryant was shot, protesters flooded the streets of downtown Columbus, chanting her name along with the names of the other Black people who have been killed during encounters with Columbus police in recent months. One of those names was Andre Hill, 47. Earlier Wednesday, Adam Coy, the officer who fatally shot Hill in December, pleaded not guilty to an additional charge of reckless homicide in that case. The plea came minutes before the state attorney general's office, which is prosecuting the former officer, dropped 2 dereliction of duty charges against Coy. But the prosecution remains confident in their case against Coy. Our case is sound and based on the facts, and we are prepared to move forward with the trial, said a statement from Attorney Pearson, Senior Assistant Attorney General. Lord, today, I'm trying to can with these people, but I just cannot. Let me move on to my next story. I think I have one more. Yeah, maybe 2. I'm going to see what I can eke in. I've got, oh my goodness, a 632, a horror. I don't know how to do this in an hour. I'm going to do, oh God. Oh, this is so rough for me, y'all. I feel like I'm speed reading, but I got to try to get the show in under an hour. No charges for Tennessee officer who fatally shot the Black student in the high school bathroom. Knoxville News Sentinel, April 21st this year. And the executions just keep going on, and I'm going to report all about it here. I will not be showing any graphic videos. I'm not into re-traumatizing us by watching this stuff into the ground, but I'm going to tell all about it on the Anti-Black Racism channel. It is what it is. Like, share, subscribe. Turn on your notifications. Thank you for your support of the show, of the channel, of my work, educating the masses, and advocating for ADOCs. Thank you for joining the live. Okay, so let me go back to the text. Knoxville, Tennessee. A police officer who fatally shot 17-year-old Anthony J. Thompson Jr. in a chaotic confrontation inside a high school bathroom on April 12th will not face charges. You execute a 17-year-old Black boy, young man, in his high school bathroom because Becky, let me read the article. Knox County District Attorney General Charm Allen said she will not charge Officer Jonathan Clabo, who fired the shot that killed Thompson. And y'all want me to move to the South? Miss me with it. I will not be going south. Okay? She says she won't be charging him. He fired the shot that killed Thompson. Clabo also shot Officer Adam Wilson in the struggle. This is a self-defense case, Allen said at a 2-hour news conference. At the end of the day, we have found the shooting by Officer Clabo was justified. But you can take white mass murderers alive. Take them to Burger King. Offer them water. Help them to bail. Ethnic cleansing. Prominent civil rights attorney Benjamin Crump announced Monday he is representing Thompson's family. Once again, when a Black person is killed, in this case, a Black child, the police quickly shape a narrative to justify the death, said Crump in a statement issued on Twitter. In the days after the shooting, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation released 2 differing accounts of what occurred. Of course they did. including an incorrect assertion that Thompson fired a shot that struck an officer. The world was told that Anthony shot an officer, and that's why police fatally shot him, Crump said. Allen showed body cam video footage Wednesday following growing calls for the video to be released. After Allen announced her decision not to press charges, protesters gathered outside the Knoxville Police Department and the high school. The videos show a short but chaotic confrontation between the teen and Knoxville police officers inside the bathroom. In the end, Thompson is face down on the floor and Wilson is being pulled out the door. Allen said police went into the school's bathroom to find Thompson after his girlfriend's mother, Becky, Karen, playing in the snow. Allen said police went into the school's bathroom to find Thompson after his girlfriend's mother accused Thompson of beating her daughter at school. Thompson and his best friend were inside, each in separate stalls, though it's not clear whether police knew that when they entered the bathroom. Body camera footage revealed 4 officers wound up inside the bathroom: Claiborne, Officer Brian Baldwin, School Resource Officer Adam Wilson, and Lieutenant Stanley Cash. They surrounded Thompson, who was wearing a backpack, and began pulling him out of the stall. Allen said Claiborne saw a gun in the front pocket of Thompson's hoodie, with Anthony Thompson's hand on the butt. He thinks I'm about to die, Allen said of the officer's mindset. Suddenly, Thompson's gun fired. Baldwin immediately dropped away from Claiborne's view. Claiborne mistakenly believed Baldwin had been shot, so he fired, striking Thompson in the chest. Allen said Claiborne fired a second shot because he believed Thompson was about to shoot Cash. That shot, she said, struck Wilson in the back of his thigh. Cash then climbed on top of Thompson, who was face down on the floor and bleeding to death. Allen said only 11 seconds elapsed between the time Claiborne first saw the gun and when he shot Thompson. Allen said she reviewed body camera footage and went over the evidence with Thompson's family to explain why she was refusing to charge the officers in his death. She didn't explain to reporters the family's reaction, including whether they agreed with her decision. I have just spent 4 hours with Thompson's family, Allen said. That was a painfully long and agonizing 4 hours for that family. The only thing the family asked me to do was not to release the video today. She released the footage anyway, noting she had promised last week to do so. Knoxville leaders and advocates had asked her to let the community see what happened. The officers have been on paid leave since the shooting. Wilson was hospitalized for a few days and is now on paid leave as he recuperates at home. His attorney, Charles Burks Jr., told Knox News on Wednesday night he has believed from the start the officers would be vindicated. But Biden, Obama, and Uncle Tim tell you America's not a racist country. No, not at all. I'm going to stop right there and see what y'all got to say about it. I might be under an hour. Brian says the defense blamed it on perception versus perspective towards the end of the Chauvin psychological mind games. Wow. Yes, the Chauvin trial. Unbelievable. On calling the police being a double-edged sword, it's like when Atiana Jefferson's neighbor called police to do a wellness check on her, and she ended up being shot. You're absolutely right, Brian. What's up, ADOS children? Thank you for joining the live. ADOS children says, I was a foster child as well. Till time gets better. We love how you speak for us so well. Thank you, ADOS children, for joining the live and for your kind words. Brian says, it's funny how the officer is depicted as saving the other woman's life, although had he missed Bryant with any of the 4 bullets, he could very well have shot and killed them both. Brian, you said a mouthful right there. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining the live. Please be sure to like, share, subscribe, turn on your notifications. I get to pray us out early. And I do hope to see you back tomorrow noon for your midday wake-up call. This has been Angela Nirvana and your segment of the Ida B. Wells 2.0 series presents Anti-Black Racism. We're going to keep our foot on the gas, family, until we wake up and move as a block. This is what we do over here at the Reparations Perspective. And I'm so grateful that you join me for the ride and for the truth-telling. I so appreciate your presence and everything you do to support the show. And with that said, family, let me pray a prayer of protection to cover us. I want to share that the light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever ADOX and his allies are, God truly is, because, family, you are the face of God, the voice of God, the body temple of the Spirit of the living God. If no one's told you today, family, know that I love you black and I love you strong. Until tomorrow noon, Pacific Standard Time, you make it a beautiful, God-inspired rest of your evening. Peace.